of Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Well, Taylor, sounds like we both had a very hectic morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Okay. Well, we had to do big business on the phone. I had to sprint home from DBU as I explained to the masses all about constitutional law, which I get to do for y'all right now. We're going to talk about school loan forgiveness and the ins and the outs, the good, the bad, all of it. It's going to be a fairly detailed show, so I hope I explain it well and appropriately. It's not an easy topic. It's not for some people. It's crystal clear, yes or no. There's more to it than that, but I'll at the end of the show, I think you'll have a pretty good idea where I stand on the issue for various reasons. But I hope I ask y'all to listen through this, the show, and share it, whatever else, because it really does. It really does make a difference at what's going on here in this situation. Let me rephrase it. I'm kind of reading at the same time. Not that my opinion will make a difference, but what happens with the situation will make a tremendous difference. That's what I really meant to say. My opinion is what it is. You can take it or leave it. Anyway, so how are you doing, Taylor?
I'm doing well.
Yeah. What
Staying busy.
Staying busy? Still working on that top secret project?
Yes.
Well, we're going to have a lot of studio shows in the next 4 weeks. I think I only have like 2 more shows similar to this, where I'm here at the home planet here doing this show. Home Planet, yeah. I'll be there at Local Legends. Yeah, Billy Cordell on Thursday. I'm looking forward to that. I really am, because he's not just a good guy. He's a great guy. He's a great police chief, and I think we're blessed to have him as a public servant in our situation. But anyway, I digress. Anyway, we're going to talk about student loan forgiveness. So let's run through the sponsors. Taylor, we're probably just going to do all the sponsors at once. Okay.
All right, sounds good.
All right, because I think it'll just go smoother that way. All right, CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire. Check out the website for their plans over at CrossFitBurleson.com. They got plans, they got trainers, they got regimens, they got supervision, they got a clean, healthy, and sanitary environment, secure environment. So you have no worries about those things. And so if you're looking for a pretty physical workout, CrossFit Burleson's your place to do it over at 317 Southwest Wilshire. Also, Shandy Stocksdale. I talked to her last week. I think it's a good show for y'all to pick up if you haven't already. It talks about the real estate, talks about the markets. Yesterday, Jerome Powell comes out and says there's going to be some pain. Actually, it was Friday he said that. There's going to be some pain in the markets because of their moves on rates, and the Dow Jones dropped 1,000 points. So that's a bunch. But also, if you're looking to move in this area, you need somebody like Shandy who knows where the real estate is. So check out our 817life.com page as well. Also, Rex Russell, I've been talking with him about all this business about the student loans. He definitely has an opinion, and he'll be glad to tell it to you if you want to call him or talk to him on myfinancialbox.com. Get to know him. He can help you with the plans, help you with the markets. They're going crazy all the time, up and down by a ton. So if you need somebody to keep you from jumping off the ledge, click myfinancialbox.com and become a client and get to know him, have a little coffee, and help you with your retirement plans, college plans, whatever else plans you got. Thank you to Gayla. She's open right now at Southern Gym on the top floor of the Windmiller Building. It's soon to be moving to the bottom floor of the Windmiller Building. And she's got the inventory. She's got the skills. She got she can clean. She can design. She can appraise. She could fix. All these things that she has. She's a licensed jeweler as opposed to just somebody behind a counter. She has all the accreditations that are available in this area. So go talk to her if you're looking for something for Christmas. I mean, I know it's 4 months away, but it's never too soon to be thinking about that gift for that special loved one. Also, thank you to Michelle at Hotworks. Hope you're doing well. Over to 731 John Jones, right near the all those Care Now centers, the Chicken Salad Chick, near the Kroger grocery store. Oh, and 731 John Jones, 11 different workouts with the infrared system, and maximizes your workout, less stress on your body, helps you achieve certain goals without all the stress and strain and tears. So Hotworks on 731 John Jones. Go check it out. Also, Mandy Harden at Creative Concepts by Mandy. If you're looking for promotional items, then she's the person to talk to. She's the one that has all the stuff to to promote your business, pins, hats, cups, like I've been using, shirts, banners, you name it. There's a whole raft of things, display boxes, things of that nature. A lot of us in the B&I have used her, and we really like the quality of her service. And also, thank you to Otto at our place. I just talked to him just a little bit ago, and he's doing fine, great, and wonderful. I'll be there tomorrow doing business. That's where I do my business, is at our place, because it's quiet, it's comfortable, it's a good place. People have great service there. The food is great. It's just a very comfortable place to be, and it's the go-to place for lunch and breakfast in this town. Thank you to Chris. He's having a big kickoff party on September 9th at Wild Cigar and Culture, so you want to check that out. Also, check out his webpage for drink specials this week. He likes to focus on Texas wines and Texas distilleries and Texas breweries. So you check him out. He's got really good stuff and great cigars. Of course, the Humidor is fantastic. He's kind of like the stopping point for a lot of these promoters that are promoting these cigars. It's become the area's go-to place for a high quality cigar and a good drink. Also, Tiffany, hope you're doing well. Local Life Magazine. I hope she's taking at least a week off after her wedding. Local Life Magazine, it'll be out soon. If it's not already in the mail, localliftx.com is up on the website. So you can check out the latest articles, specials, coupons, etc. It's a great place to advertise. 30,000 homes, over 110,000 people see it. So it's a great magazine. And also she has social media opportunities for you if you want to talk to her about that. Also, one last one. I got to get that. I want to welcome Danette Juster to our family. I got to get that logo up there pretty soon. She's an interior decorator. She'll be on the show pretty soon. We're going to talk about what she does and how she got here from Colorado to Texas, and talk about her interior decorating skills. So thank you, Danette. A lot of my sponsors already know her. Apparently, I talked to a couple of them and said, "Oh yes, I know who she is," and it's really good to hear. Where do you go from the top? Well, the story here I find to be interesting is that Joe Biden for a long time had resisted forgiving this debt. First of all, as we'll see in later quotes, he didn't think he had the authority. Now apparently he thinks he does. But also he was basically bullied into it from what I've read. The New York Times has a really good article from a couple of days ago that talks about the process by which he comes to this conclusion that yes, indeed, he has the authority to do it. Joe, at the beginning, he always tried to position himself and portray himself as, Scranton Joe, as a working man's Joe, whatever else. And he said, even earlier on, he said that he's convinced by this debt cancellation be a good idea because, quote, it might benefit people who have gone to Harvard and Yale and Penn, which it does. Apparently, they finally got his attention, and who will be Chuck Schumer, Elizabeth Raphael Warnock, who is the Democrat senator who's running for re-election from Georgia. They all saw this as beneficial to not just his particular campaign, but all Democrat campaigns. And we'll talk about the political aspects of this at the end of the show. But they all were persuading them to do this. And then you had, of course, other lobbying groups who were persuading them to finally come to this conclusion after so many months. And even in his campaign, he said, I don't think I have the authority to do it. To come to this conclusion he came to last Wednesday, which as far as can he and should he, I'm trying to get to that in a minute. But basically, that's how he got to it, is he was pushed into it by Schumer and Warren. And that's just wonderful. Now, also Kamala Harris was a big pusher of this idea. And I got to say, Kamala Harris is the most egregious vice president we've ever had. And you could say, well, Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney is what he was, and you could have all the opinion you want about him. But if he had to take over in a case of Bush's situation, I'd feel a whole lot better than I would than Kamala Harris taking over. Basically, on a side note, by her, when she was confronted with, well, how are you going to pay for this? She didn't even answer the question. She started ranting about how unfair the 2017 Republican tax plan was. That's a third grade response, Ms. Vice President. Answer the question. Sliding the attention over to an act that passed 5 years ago. But Joe Biden actually did the same thing. They both have been asked point blank, how are you going to pay for this? They said, or is this fair? The response has always been, well, If you think this is unfair, how about that Republican bill in 2017? Okay, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. It doesn't make this any less unfair or fair. That's an invalid comparison, both y'all, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, but they will stick to their guns. Also, other leaders of the NAACP, also leaders of other advocacy groups are pushing and pushing. Now, who is opposed to it within the administration? Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary. She was opposed to it. She had very deep concerns about the inflationary effects of this. And she also, had about the validity of can he do it or not. She kept to herself, but she was basically worried that the economic impacts with this, basically this big giveaway, she called it, was going to have real ramifications in the economy. And not just her, but also Larry Summers, who was the president emeritus of Harvard and economist for Bill Clinton, and Obama's former chief executive, Jason Furman, all said it was going to be an inflationary thing if he does this. Even one of his closest political advisors, Mike Donilon, who is his political advisor, said, the impact of this may be short term. You might get a few votes from it, but if it has long-term inflationary effects, it'll destroy the Democrat Party in 2024. Even Jill Biden was skeptical. Jill Biden was more of the advocate, not to forgive the debts, but to make community college free, because that's what she teaches at, is in a community college. Okay. That's another conversation we can have. But even Jill Biden was opposed to this, at least in this format. So why did Joe do it? Because Joe Biden is a persuadable person. And that's all there's to it. He's persuadable. He can, when you put enough pressure on him, particularly from the left, you can count on him buckling like a cheap card table. And that's what he did here. He was opposed to it until he wasn't. This reminds me of when Obama was opposed to granting the Dreamers Act, because he said, I don't think I have the authority to do it. Then after a bad midterm election, he said, son of a gun, I guess I can. And this is what's happening here. Okay. So that's the process, basically, is that they kept pushing it. And they're trying to sell it as like most of the people that benefit from this debt forgiveness are the lower income earners. There is no study or think tank or any other organization that agrees with that assessment, even the liberal ones. For example, the Penn Wharton School, which is one of the most prestigious business schools and is often cited when people want to use an argument, particularly on the Democrat side, they said that basically the top 60% are going to get most of the money. I'm reading it right here, that most of the people here that are going to get the most gain from it are going to be in the top economic quartiles. Now, there is a income cap to it. Okay, there's an income cap to it, but it's, what is it? 150,000, 250,000 for a couple, something like that. So you're talking about, a considerable amount of money. So you have this going on with because the money is going to benefit most of those that are higher end earners than the average wage earner. Now, again, I'm trying to structure the show as logically as I can, so I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I'll talk about the impact this is going to be having on non-high earners, you might say. Going on here, even, will it be, and also I'll address the issue whether it's going to be challenged in court later as well. Now, I'd like to have a few comments or read a few comments about people that said that this was not really in their ability to do so. Taylor, did you get that email sent you with the Twitter clip of Ms. Pelosi?
I did not, but let me look and I can get it pulled up in just a second.
All right. We both had very busy mornings. So let me know when you have it pulled up, because I want to address that.
Will do. I'll shoot you a text.
All right. Now, here's Mr. Biden's comment about his ability to do it himself. So even Biden had doubts until he didn't. He was in a CNN town hall last year. He says, I don't think I have the authority to do it by signing with a pen. So he even himself acknowledges that he didn't think he had the authority. And of course, and people are asking, what authority is he basing this on? Well, a very, very loose reading of what's called the HEROES Act, which was passed after 9/11 to allow for certain economic situations to be altered by the president. In other words, if you had people that were affected by 9/11 very adversely, then they could have the government could alleviate some of that adversity, including loan forgiveness.
I got it ready.
Okay, I'll let you know. Another thing, by the way, on loan forgiveness. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself again. Anyway, so go ahead and run that clip from Ms. Pelosi. This is from last summer.
People think that the President of the United States has the power for debt forgiveness. He does not. He can postpone, he can delay, but he does not have that power. That has to be an act of Congress. And I don't even like to call it forgiveness because that implies a transgression. It's not to be forgiven. Just freeing people from those obligations. So the question of who gets forgiven, to use the term of art that is out there, is a debate. Do we use whatever money there is for the broadest base of support of those with more people with even less debt or fewer people with more debt? That's a policy discussion. But the difference between the president can't do it. So that's not even a discussion. Not everybody realizes that, but the president can only postpone, delay, but not forgive.
Okay, that was July 2021. This was her statement from last Thursday that she said Biden's bold action is a strong step in Democrats' fight to expand access to higher education and empower every American to reach fulfillment. By delivering historic, targeted student debt relief to millions of borrowers, more working families will be able to meet their kitchen table needs as they continue to recover from the challenges of the pandemic. Importantly, this action will help those most in need, easing a financial burden disproportionately harming women and people of color. Lies all the way through it. All right, but first of all, the hypocrisy is astounding. Okay. She goes last year, she said the president can't do it, only Congress can. Now she's praising him for this historic move. And when you talk about who's going to get the most benefit of this, women and people of color, that's just a statement she made. The stats have no way of verifying that. They're just a way of selling it. So don't take her word for it. The fact that she may have in the past been known to equivocate from the straight line of the truth, yeah, she does that. So even the Washington Post and New York Times have called her out on that. Not just the right-wing press, you might say, not just the conservative press like the National Review. Even the Post and the Times put in their articles about her previous statements, and now she's calling it historic and bold action, and she's claiming it's going to ease the burden of all these other people that really she has no idea. So she's a hypocrite. I was going to say damn hypocrite, but I don't like to cuss. She's a hypocrite on this, and that if she had said this, oh, the president can do this last year, she'd be wrong then, but she was actually right then, and now she's backtracking because she doesn't want to embarrass her president. Now, some Democrats have called him out and said this is not really the case. I'll get to them in a minute, but before I get to this one, the Department of Education on January of 2021, which is right before he was inaugurated, and this was an issue coming up, and he had said, I'll look to it, whatever else. The Department of Education said that he didn't have the authority. The secretary, and this would be the Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, does not have statutory authority to provide blanket or mass cancellation, compromise, discharge, or forgiveness of student loan principal balances, and or materially modify the repayment amounts or terms thereof, whether due to the COVID-19 pandemic or for any other reason. Now, a lot of people, by the way, when it comes to pandemic relief, have been comparing this to the PPP plan, the Paycheck Protection Plan. It is an invalid comparison. Why? Because those loans were designed to be forgiven if they were used the way they were designed. Now, people, there was a disaster in some ways. The PPP was greatly, greatly abused. There's a lot of money that was going to scandalous purposes. There were fraud situations. There were misapplications of money. There are people that got PPP plans inappropriately or used them inappropriately, and that's all true, but that has nothing to do with student loans. The PPP plan was designed by its very beginning that if you get a loan and you applied it to the paycheck protections of your employees and kept them on the payroll, then those loans were designed to be forgiven. And I know several businesses in this community that have done that. That's why this is not a valid comparison, because these student loans are never designed to be forgiven in this manner. So that kind of comparison needs to be relegated to the dustbin, because it's not the same thing at all. Now people say, well, wait, bailed out the banks in 2008. Yes, to me, that's still just a scandalous. Even to this day, I think it was one of the most egregious things the government has ever done. Egregious because many of these banks involved themselves in moral hazard, as they say, and then had the government bail them out. And none of these perpetrators of this moral hazard spent one iota of time behind bars. In fact, next year they were still collecting their bonuses. So yes, that was an egregious, terrible thing. And you say, well, this is better because it helps people. Well, no, one egregious thing doesn't entitle you to a mulligan, as they say in golf. You don't get to do, well, I got this one egregious thing I could do in my pocket that I can do, and therefore this loan situation needs to be looked at differently than the bank situation, in a sense that the bank situation was wrong, it was scandalous, it was immoral, it was loaded with corruption. I'm not saying that about this student loan business. My deep reservations about it are based on other things other than what happened in 2008. To me, that's not it's a non-factor. I don't like moral equivalencies. Now, but again, I want to make myself clear. My contentions with the student loan forgiveness has nothing to do with 2008, has nothing to do with PPP, and has nothing to do with Christian charity. This is another one I want to briefly mention. Say this as tactfully as I can. I saw many postings, Facebook, social media, about how this is equivalent to Christian charity, and I have to dispute that. Now, if that stance was taken by somebody I know to be a true follower of Christ, I would say, brother, sister, I disagree with you, but you're still my brother or sister. The ones that really got under my skin were made by people who really have no relationship with the Christian faith, and they were just doing it to troll people like myself and others, and trying to say, well, if you're so in favor of forgiveness, why aren't you not in favor of this? Christ paid a debt that I owed himself by a personal sacrifice that I couldn't match in any way, shape, or form. I had a debt I could not pay. He had a debt he did not owe, and he paid it himself with the ultimate sacrifice. Joe Biden is paying other people's debts with other people's monies so people that don't owe are paying for people that do owe, and these people that do pay may have the ability to repay. I really butchered that up. I'm going to try it again. It's not the same thing to equivocate Christ's sacrifice and forgiveness of my sin to somebody else getting their loans paid off by somebody else, dictated to by a government entity that's not going to make any sacrifice whatsoever. Joe Biden's not making the sacrifice. He's using other people's money to pay other people's debts. So this Christian equivalency is used to troll us. Don't do that. All right? If you're a true believer in Christ, I'll debate and we'll, and pray and whatever else. But if you're just out there to look to gig people and try to say, well, if you're so much about forgiveness, therefore you should be in favor of this, it's totally wrong. Because again, Christ paid a debt he did not owe for one I could not pay. Biden's paying other people's debts with other people's money in many cases they could pay. So the Christian equivalency is not a good one at all. As far as, again, I will say to my Christian brothers and sisters that are sincere in their faith, we could talk about this, but I'd ask them to believe, we talk about debts. If I forgave a debt that somebody owed me, if somebody owed me $50 and I forgave it, yes, I would be acting within the spirit of Christianity. If I forgave somebody else's debts with somebody else's money, somebody owed you $50 and I said, it's forgiven, no big deal, and you don't get your $50, that's the big difference. That's a majorly big difference, as they might say, as the kids might say, majorly. Furthermore, this mixing of religion and policy, I think is hypocritical in some points, because when we had the Dobbs decision, I saw a lot of postings, don't put your religion on me. Don't put your religious values on me. It's a theocracy we're creating here. So a lot of people oppose abortion because of religious faith. And so when decision came down, we got a lot of pushback on that because you don't have the right to impose religious views on me. Same thing about people that oppose gay marriage on this. Based on religious faith. You don't have the right to impose your religious faith on how I live my life. Okay, I get it. Go in peace. I agree. But don't pull the religion factor into this now when you categorically rejected in every other policy area that you don't want religious values to intermix with policy decisions. Don't come to me and say you're pushing your religion on me by your views on the Dobbs decision, but I'm going to push your Christian views on you. One I don't share, but I'll push your views on you about the debt situation. Save it. Save it for somebody who pays attention to that kind of crap. All right. If you want to mix Christian theology with policy, let's work it both ways, because you may not like the results. I'm been very much in favor of church-state separation. I'm not saying that Christians have no role in politics. They do, but don't use the religion card for this where you reject it in other areas. Okay, that just really got under my skin. Now, as far as the impact of this, is going to be the two leading economists that have been quoted most are Jason Furman from the Obama administration, Larry Summers from the Clinton administration, and like I said, he's with Harvard. He was an economics professor and whatever else. He said it's going to cause inflation. Why? Because at $300 billion that's estimated, and that's just an estimate, at $300 billion that they estimate is, first of all, it's not paid for by any taxes or increased revenue whatsoever. So basically, we just applied a $300 billion deficit to the government without any basis. And Joe Biden, again, had promised he would always pay for everything he passed. They have not answered that question yet in over a week. How is this going to be paid for? They're going to borrow the money, which is exactly opposite of what they said they were going to do. And so this will have an inflationary impact. And you couple this with the higher interest rates that the Fed is going to be pushing, and this is just going to push them even higher, those bonds are going to be more expensive to the government. The very debt issues that they're going to put out towards this student loan is going to cost us more because of the higher interest rate caused by the inflation. And this is just going to add to it. Furman says it's pouring gasoline on it. Summers says it's an exceptionally bad idea. I'm looking for all my quotes and whatnot, but they have a great deal of concern about it. And not just him. There's other Democrats that are saying that they have concerns about the economic impact on it here. I could name a couple, like Michael Bennet, the senator from Colorado, basically says that while immediate relief for families is important, one-time debt cancellation does not solve the underlying problem. I see a comment by Mr. Mike Massey. Something needs to be done about the cost of college, but this is not it. I thoroughly agree, and this is going to be the crux of my show towards the end. The ones that are seen to be running for office in tight races are not very in favor of this. Senator Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada doesn't agree with the move because it doesn't address the root problems that make college unaffordable. Exactly. It surely doesn't. There's another reason I oppose it, and I've hinted about it, but I'm going to say this more forcefully. This decree by the president without congressional authorization is dangerous. Not just because of what it is, but again, it further pushes away this concept of separation of powers and the three branches staying in their lanes. Pelosi herself last year said he doesn't have the authority. Now the president's just going to take this authority. 2.5 years now, my Democrat friends, what are you going to feel like if we're inaugurating President DeSantis? And he's always going to say, well, we're in an emergency situation, so I'm going to suspend the capital gains tax, which is what people tried to get Trump to do in 2019. But he said, even Trump said he didn't have that authority. What if Trump is reelected, which is not as far out of the realm of possibility as some of y'all wish to think? He's going to have the bit between his teeth. We won't even bother having a Congress. It'll just become a squawking, debating society, which is pretty much what it is now. The president, whether you like this or not, whether you like this executive order or not, and you need to think about it that way. And you should not say, well, Trump did it. What Trump did was wrong then too. Okay? Obama did it. Well, Obama was wrong then too. The thing that's whataboutism, well, if they did it, then we should be able to do it. Doesn't mean what he did was right, and therefore what I'm doing is right. It was wrong then, it's wrong now. And if you've listened to my show any length of time, you've heard me rant and rave about the excess of executive power. And a lot of these shows are done during the Trump administration. And so that is something you need to consider. What is the next president going to do? The Democrats will not have the White House in perpetuity. And there's, you're going to have these other issues if the Republicans take over the House, which the polls are drifting a bit. The Democrats are getting some positive news. That's all well and good. Big deal. They're going to get in there. They already talked about impeaching Biden, and it's just like, my God, we need real solutions to our problems, not this circus that we're going to continue. Okay. Now, who are the true beneficiaries This is really what I get to. Who really benefits from this plan? It's not the students. If you really want to do something to help the people that hold this debt, the real area you might want to concentrate on is the interest and not the principal. Taking away $10,000 in the principal is all well and good, but it still won't solve the interest issue, which is what I've talked to several people that have loans, and they said the issue of interest is what really slowed them down, was the biggest impediment in getting rid of their debt. This clock that's running on the interest. If you want to do something about that, then we'll have a conversation. And it's hoping it's done through Congress. But this forgiving $10,000 in principal, the experts already said that within 4 years, our student debt level will be back to its current position of $1.7 trillion. So the students, some of these students may get a temporary relief, and some may get a bill, get rid of their debt altogether, and good for them. But a lot of these people, it's just going to be, it may be shortening the time frame in which they can pay off their debts, but they're still going to have to deal with the high rates of interest by these subsidized loans. So if you want to talk about that, that's one thing. But the real beneficiaries are the banks and the universities. These student loans have contributed almost 100% to the massive, massive increase in the cost of attending universities, particularly the private ones. And I say this as a devoted Baylor Bear fan. My university's too expensive. It never should have been this expensive. University of Texas shouldn't be this expensive. It shouldn't cost you nearly $30,000 a year to go to a state school. When I went to school, the rate was what it was. It was about $8,000 a year my senior year. If the rate of inflation applied to Baylor's tuition, it'd be about $26,000 now. It's not that. I tell you, anybody who's checked out the price could tell you that's not it. Texas was about $30,000 a year. It's close to 30. The universities, A&M, same thing. Texas Tech, TC, you fill in the blank. They've all gone up massively ahead of the rate of inflation. Why? Because these loans made it available for people to go to these schools, make these choices to go to these schools with the image that it's all affordable, because you don't start paying it till you get out of school. And I've known a couple of students that never got out of school because they never wanted to pay the loans. And by the way, on a side note, these loans are not dischargeable through Chapter 7 bankruptcy. It isn't like you can't pay your car note, so they'll come and take your car away. They're not dischargeable. But back to the point I'm making is this. As colleges were able to increase their tuition faster than the rate of inflation, they could partner with these lenders and tell the student, yes, I know we're expensive, but look at all these low interest loans that are available to you. And so it became like this spiraling upward as my cousin says, they windmilled these loans through, or basically they just put the money out there more and more, and it was government guaranteed, subsidized, guaranteed debt. So the banks had a lot of incentive to put it out there. And so they'll put it, the government, would put money out there, and then they would sell some of these loans to banks to service them and things like that. So it was a money-making business for the banks big time, because they're getting basically guaranteed rates of return that are not dischargeable through Chapter 7. And the universities could raise their price another $5,000 and say, well, here's all this money in the Parent Plus program or other lending type programs through FAFSA, et cetera. And so it just became an ongoing whirlwind of raising rates, raising tuition, and increased college debt just to go to college. Furthermore, we sold this country on the idea that college is the ticket to any kind of prosperity, which is really not true in a lot of cases. I mean, first of all, it depends on what you majored in. If you majored in philosophy or Greek poetry, well, great, but you're not going to find a high-paying job anywhere for that. But now you got the debts for it. Or if you majored in something that is not economically in demand, I'm sorry, but that's the economy. And so if you went to TCU or Baylor and you spent $50,000 to become a school teacher, we appreciate your service, but you could have gotten that degree at UTA for a lot cheaper cost. That's where I got my school certifications, as UTA, and my master's. And again, I say this as a faithful Bear fan. You're too expensive, Baylor. And going to school there to be an education major or a social worker may be a noble profession, but you're going to have a hard time repaying that loan. So if you chose something, you chose a school and you chose an economic destination, so to speak, that don't match up, I'm sorry. And you have schools that now with all flush with this money that are expending all their degree opportunities into things that really are not viably economic viably, that's a better way to put it. All right. There's a lot of degrees out there that may be, solid degrees, but they don't lead to high earning. They're not doctors, lawyers, and engineers. They are teachers or social workers, or, if you're a sociology major, or if you're this or that and the other, great. But if you can't apply that in an economic sense, then some thought should have gone into what you chose to do. And the idea that because I'm this type of major and have these type of loans doesn't entitle you to automatically for debt reduction. All right. The universities, in my opinion, and the banks colluded on this to make this situation happen. And the government's bailing not the students out. Because, like I said, this $10,000 is going to be evaporated pretty soon. And we'll go back to $1.7 trillion in about 4 years, according to the studies. So we can go from 1.7 trillion to 1.4 trillion if this passes. But it's not going to change a thing. And it's also going to lead to something called moral hazard, which is basically making decisions that you wouldn't make otherwise unless you knew that these subsidies were available. You're going to have people, these loans, by the way, are available to current students, or these loan reductions or forgiveness is available to current students. They're not applicable on loans taken after July 1st. But if you took out a loan like in May to go to this year's or semester of schooling, it's applicable. But you're going to have moral hazard. You're going to have people say, well, I can go to school now, and the school of my dreams are going to be $10,000 less. And they're thinking, or I'll just borrow some more money. It's going to lead to more borrowing. And that's why the experts say this is really just a stunt, because it's not going to change anything. All right. Now, as far as the attitudes and bars, I see a lot of indignation on the part of certain people on the various platforms that said that the people that worked and paid off their loans should not be indignant about having other debts paid off. How can I express this? There are a lot of people that did a lot of sacrificing to pay off their student loans. They didn't buy that car they could have. They bought a smaller car. They didn't buy the house they really wanted, so they bought a smaller house in a neighborhood that they didn't want to move to as much. They forewent vacations. They didn't buy things that they could have bought. They went to community college for 2 years, or they lived at home and went to UTA or whatever school you want to talk about. They made these sacrifices based on the perceived expense and the avoidance of debt. Or they avoided college altogether. They didn't see college as a viable path for them, so they became welders and plumbers and air conditioner men who make really good livings, or truck drivers or welders. All these things we need. But here's the thing about these situations. They have a cap on their earning ability. Most college graduates don't. The difference in earning potential of a college graduate, particularly with a master's degree, over those that did not attend college is substantial, to say the least. There's a much higher ceiling for college graduates than the guy that's fixing your AC right now, or fixing your plumbing, or driving that truck for the grocery store. Some people couldn't go to school. Some people didn't go to school. Some people said, I have no aptitude for college. I want to learn a skill and a trade. What happened? What about them? What about the expense they took to get those degrees, or those certifications, those accreditations? What about the people that, really did sacrifice to pay off their debts, and now they're basically seeing other people getting their debts reduced because the constituency that votes Democrat cried the loudest? This is a class warfare type move, if you will, because the people that benefit from this are almost exclusively Democrat voters. Not exclusively, maybe a little extreme, but quite large majority. The young millennial crowd The people that are going to not be beneficiaries of this are becoming more and more Republican. The working class, blue collar, Hispanic, African American class. They're not seeing anything from this. They have debts too, car debts, house debts, debts for their business. That old boy in a truck that's, driving around in a flatbed has probably a lot of debts trying to keep his business going. He's not getting a dime. And so that's one, when people get indignant about, well, you shouldn't begrudge us this debt reduction. I think you need to check your privilege, if you will, and look at it from their point of view, that they made sacrifices and choices based on perceived cost. And maybe a lot of these other people did not, and they're getting bailed out. I do believe this is a classist move by Biden. He's trying to reinforce the vote in November by his millennial crowd because they're going to be grateful to him for the $10,000. And the people that basically do work for a living who would love to send their kids to TCU, Baylor, SMU, or Texas, or A&M, or these schools. Instead, they send them to me at Hill because that's what they can afford. And we have the opportunity fund here in town, and they take advantage of that. Instead of going to a 4-year university, they skip the frat party and the ball games. They come to Hill College, and I teach them. What do you tell these guys? All right, that really got under my skin. Also, is the indignation that some of these people who are receiving these loan forgiveness are just like, how dare you begrudge me this money? How dare you, just because you paid off your bills, think I should have to pay off mine? And I saw again the use of Christ and other imagery from the New Testament about this. And stop, dismiss me with that, because you're not trying to make a spiritual point. You're trying to troll people. Anyway, I kind of got a little bit off the track here, but again, let's not delude ourselves. This is a move to benefit colleges and universities and the banks, period, in a conversation. It's sand in the eyes. People think they have $10,000 coming to them. Great. And here's also, I'll be very candid. If you're one of the people that have $10,000 coming to you, take the money. I'm not saying it'd be no point in denying it out of some principle. Just I don't like this plan at all, but it's not going to do you any good just to say nope, no, thank you. I'm not taking it unless you're extremely confident you can pay it back. But I know I do realize the position that a lot of these students, kids are in, young people are in with these debts. I've had conversations with my children, with other people's students and children, the burden that this is causing. I understand that, but this is not the way to do it. You want to relieve the burden? I go back to the interest issues. You want to relieve the burden? Make college affordable. Make them accountable for the loans they're giving out and what happens to the people that take them. Make the universities accountable for these billions and billions of subsidized loans that they receive every year. That's how you can help these people out. Now, I've never spoken to, I've talked to several people that either have loans or the kids do. And not one of them, whether they like this plan or hated this plan, is going to forego the money. So I'm not saying that. Just take it. It's like that COVID money. A lot of people got it. It wouldn't have done you any good to say no. So if that makes me seem like a hypocrite, so be it. But I'm just saying there's no point. It's the policy that's wrong. It's not the people taking it. My real issue with the people that are taking it is not that they're taking money. Let's be clear. It's not that they're taking money. It's some of the people's attitude is that they're entitled to it and that people should not begrudge it to them. That's where I get kind of stuck on. I want to make this point one more time so I'm not misunderstood. Take the money if you need it, if it's coming to you. But don't sneer at people that are begrudging it, because they're looking at it like you're getting a free ride. And you're getting money that for your debts that you made choices for. And I'm still stuck with my car loans and my house loans and my business loans and my medical bill loans and everything else you want to talk about. So yeah, there's some resentment there, and you're going to have to acknowledge that resentment and maybe approach it from a less of an indignant manner. Okay. Now, to sum this up as best I can, I know I went through a lot. I am opposed to this debt giveaway. I'm not unsympathetic or unaware of the debt burden this is placing on our students, but I don't place it on other people. I place it on the government and the banks and the universities and ultimately the choices that were made that led us to this point. The choices by them and the choices by those who took out the loans and chose the schools that they did and the career paths that they did. My real grievance with this whole process is it's another form of a bank bailout, like you saw in 2008. It's a bailout of the universities. They're the ones that are going to profit by this. Not current students and not students with large debts and whatever else. And I'm also indignant about the sheer hypocrisy of it. When you have people like Pelosi and Biden saying, "Oh, I don't have the authority," or he doesn't have the authority, and then they praise him to the ceiling about how wonderful and historic and bold it is. The hypocrisy is just nauseating to watch, and it's the sheer politics of it. It's a vote buying gimmick. It's money to get voters out there in November. I can't tell you right now how the election's going to turn out. If you'd asked me 6 weeks ago, I might be more definitive, but I see what's going on in the polls, et cetera. And this was a way of trying to boost those numbers with everybody else's money. I hope, y'all listen, even one way or the other, if you're in favor or if you're opposed, okay, I get it. It's all wonderful. But think about it. Think what I've said. Think about the fact that a year ago they were saying this is impossible. Now it's absolutely possible and it's legal. One last thing. I know I was forgetting something. Will this be challenged in court? Well, there's articles saying that who's going to do the suing. You have to have standing to sue. And there's a real debate. Does anybody really have standing? Aggrieved taxpayers do not have standing. Not because of this particular case, but the courts have decided that many years ago that, if you're upset with government policy, that doesn't give you standing to sue it. That was decided in the early 70s. They had people suing the government about the Vietnam War, and they said, you don't have standing. Now, do other institutions have it? Maybe. How about, I don't know who's going to have standing. If it gets into the courts, my belief is it'll be thrown out by the Supreme Court based on what happened earlier this June, not with the Dobbs case that everybody talks about, but the West Virginia versus EPA case where the court said that the EPA extended the authority Congress had clearly delegated, that if EPA wants to do these things, Congress has to delegate it specifically. And since Congress did not act in any way on this, and they're using a very exceptionally broad interpretation of a 9/11 Act to get this done and other past acts, I can see this court ruling, if it gets to this point, that since Congress didn't delegate this specific authorization of expenditure of money, they could throw it out as unconstitutional. In fact, I'm sure they will. The whole question is, will it get to court? Who's going to do it? Which courts are they going to go to? Which appellate court's going to hear it? And will it get to the Supreme Court eventually? That's a couple-year process. This whole plan isn't really meant to go into action tomorrow anyway. I've been asked a couple of times, how is this going to happen? How do I get this thing started? Well, they don't have the processes up yet. There's going to be like an application you fill out and you have your income verified, and then they'll apply it to one of the federal loan handlers. You may have a choice in it, if you have several of these different handlers. But that's not going to happen. It won't happen until 2023 at the earliest, if it is not suspended by a court, if it's not enjoined, as they say. So let me sum this up. I think the president did an unconstitutional act. Whatever benefit that may have come to the borrowers is going to be negligible. It may give them temporary relief. It may even eliminate some debt for some people. But it's going to do so based on decisions that were made by other people that have other people paying for it. Now, we do this all the time for, I was brought to my attention, what about Social Security, Medicare, welfare, food stamps? Other people are paying for the needs of other people. Yeah, for situations that in most cases were not their own. choices to make. No one chooses to be poor unless you're a bum. No one chooses to have to go on Medicaid unless that's your only option. No one chooses to have, to be on food assistance or housing assistance unless you're a real bum. Most people, I believe, do not want to be on that assistance. And so, yeah, we provide this help to get them through these rough patches of life. This is not the same thing. We're paying for doctors and lawyers and others who went and got, in many cases, advanced degrees. So this has no relationship to welfare. So the real issue here is, I think, again, it's an unconstitutional act, which may or may not go to the court system. And I think people who receive this money should do so, take the money, like I said, but understand why not everybody's excited about it. Don't be indignant. Don't be ungrateful. Because you made choices, and I made choices with my family, where to go to school and where to send them. And I'm going to try to take care of them because those are the choices I made. Okay. I got school debts I'm still paying. Why? Because the choices we made. And I'm okay with that. Okay. Choices I made. But as far as people thinking this is an entitlement, and in people who don't recognize the sheer political nature of it, and people who don't recognize the sheer hypocrisy of it, need to reevaluate this whole thing. And that's all I have to say about that. I hope I was clear. I hope you share this with your friends. I don't know if this will be popular with everybody, but that's fine. That's why you're entitled to my opinion. That's the way it is. If you disagree with me, that's fine. You have your opportunities to post things on the pages, and I'll ask is you be tactful. I suppose you don't have to agree with me. Just don't be mean. Hurt my feelings. This will be on the podcast tomorrow. Like I said, Thursday I have Billy Cordell. And next week I have Brina Daniels on Tuesday, and a friend of mine from BNI who is one of our newest sponsors coming up. But I'll save it for then. All right. Taylor, you doing good?
I'm doing good.
All right. I'll take care of that Libsyn thing. This is a little inside baseball talk for you guys, but I have to clear up some space to put this podcast and yesterday's podcast available. So I'll take care of that as soon as I'm off the air.
Awesome.
Thank you all for listening. Listen to me rant and whatever else. And share, like I said, share this with friends and see what they have to say and see if I'm right on the button or if I'm full of it. Either one is possible. I'll talk to you later.